A few years ago, I used to face this situation where in social gatherings, I used to suffer. Like, I would see all these people enjoying, talking, laughing together. They'll be discussing about several things. My friends or my cousins will be standing together taking pictures. And I was sitting there overwhelmed, having no idea what to do. And even if I did manage to speak, it was usually when they initiated a conversation and I had no idea how to keep the conversation going. Not engaging in a conversation is actually not a bad thing. There are many situations or occasions where I am usually very quiet and super overwhelmed, and the only time I actually talk even in such situation is when someone comes and talks to me. Forcing myself to talk when I'm not in the mood to talk is actually a pretty bad idea. But what if you actually want a conversation to keep going? How do you keep this conversation going on? So in this video, I'll be focusing exactly on that. So stay tuned. Once again, welcome to my video. My name is Varsha, and if you can kind of connect with the story that I told you earlier, then this video is for you. Usually in a conversation, I have seen people continue the conversation with just a single question like, what are you doing? They use different variations of this particular question like, what are you doing now? What will you be doing later? What will you be doing tomorrow? Or what are your career plans? So it's always these variations, but what happens once they have completed answering all these questions and they don't ask you anything? The one thing that you should keep in mind before entering any kind of socializing is to change into your social state. So instead of worrying whether a person will like you or not, think it in such a way that you are going to make that particular person's day better. Most of the time, the fear of judgment is what keeps us away from socializing. So here are a few strategies that could help you in keeping a conversation going. The first suggestion that I would like to give you is something that I have adopted myself, is asking open-ended questions. So when you ask open-ended questions like what, why, how, when, this actually helps you to understand the other person better. And when they slowly open out to you and they share things about them towards you, what happens is that they start liking you, and this is actually acts as a favor in your relationship. You can also use the FORD rule, F-O-R-D. F for family, O for occupation, R for recreation, and D for dreams. So this will help you to keep the conversation going. Another thing is, suppose if you are in a group of 3 or 4 people and they know each other, one of the best questions that you can ask is, how do these guys know each other? So when you ask this question, they will open out about themselves and then they'll tell you so many stories. This will help you to understand them. Also will help you to get more questions to keep asking. So how do you guys know each other? Now what do you do if you find yourself to be the only one talking and the other person being completely quiet? During such situation, what you can do is you can completely flip the script. Ask them questions like, what about you? This is one of the most common questions I've heard whenever I'm engaging in some kind of conversation online. So another thing that I have noticed is when people engage in conversations about a topic that they're not much aware of, they usually back off from the conversation. Instead of doing that, stay there and consider this an opportunity for you to learn about something new. So in situations where people actually come to me and ask me questions regarding something that I'm really passionate about, I actually love explaining it to them. Let me give you an example. So being a teacher, I actually have 2 different types of students. One are those students who are usually busy in their own world and I have to constantly keep calling them and asking them if they're paying attention. And the second one are the kind of students who just come running towards me and go like, ma'am, could you please talk to me about psychology? Oh wait, ma'am, could you please teach me psychology today? And I just love taking class for these guys. With the first set of students, I usually wait for the class to get over because it's kind of sad keeping on talking about things when they're not even paying attention. And with the second set of students, I usually feel sad when the class gets over. Being curious and interested in someone else's passion or whatever someone else is passionate about will actually help you keep the conversation going, and not only that, this makes the relationship much better. Now let me tell you about something with which you can actually relate. Now imagine someone calling you and keeps talking only about themselves. I actually feel completely aversive to such people. You know, when these people call and then they just keep talking and talking and talking about themselves, they hardly they hardly make sure whether you're there or ask you a question about maybe your day, and you're just there trying hard not to fall asleep.
So I bought this shopping machine, but then there was a lot of things, and what I can do, that is about beautiful, amazing, wonderful, fantastic things in this whole world.
Oh.
During the earlier days when I was still learning how to socialize with people, there have been situations where I kept constantly talking about myself and I saw people zoning out. It was a body language which indicated that they were extremely bored and they just wanted to leave the conversation. So when you're engaging in a conversation, try to talk about yourself only for like around 20 to 30 seconds and then shift the topic to them. Let them have the spotlight.
Let me tell you something. The world is really a complicated place, but then I have always been amazing and
The ability to tell stories is something that could grab the listener's attention. So I have met these people who can say stories in such amazing ways. It actually fascinates me and I never realize the time flying by. So if you have the ability to tell stories, and make sure you tell stories in with which they can connect and they feel empathetic to. Try to maybe continue with something that they were already speaking about. Like for example, that reminds me of, and then go ahead and start your story. This will actually help you to keep the conversation going. Now, when it comes to telling stories, don't just go to people and tell them absolutely random stories with which they feel no connection to. Yeah, keep that in mind. This is a tip that will be useful for you when you're engaging in online communication, that is chatting. Now, when you're just getting to know a particular person, don't go ahead and send a lot of paragraphs. This is a huge mistake that I used to do. And people actually gave me this identity of a person who is competing in essay writing competition rather than chatting. So do not do that, and make sure that you wait till the other person replies. There is also another point that I would like to mention when it comes to chatting. That is, now in case a person sends you more than one message, make sure you reply to each one of them rather than just the last one. Because when you reply only to the last message, you are actually giving a kind of impression that you are not interested in keeping the conversation going. Now, this is one of the last tips and also one of the most important tips. That is, before engaging in a conversation, make sure that it is a good time to talk. Because sometimes people would love to talk to you, but they might not be in a situation where they can go ahead and have a conversation with you. So instead of forcing someone to engage in a conversation with you, you can always give them their space and let them know that if they ever want to talk to you, you will be right there. Genuinely listening is a very important thing in a conversation. So you cannot just randomly ask a person a particular question and then suddenly remember some kind of deadline or a pending work that you have and be distracted. That is actually very annoying for the other person. So when you are in a conversation, make sure your attention is over there. I have seen so many people who try to keep the conversation going because they are really interested in getting to know this person, but they are always in a hurry and they are not paying attention. This is actually a very bad idea. So in case if you have to go, make sure you apologize and then let them know that you want this conversation to go ahead, but not at the moment. You would like to keep in touch with them and maybe ask them a social media account which they will be comfortable sharing with you. So that is it for today's video. I hope you find this particular video useful, and I hope these tips will be useful for you. In case you are not yet my subscriber, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, and if you found this video useful, click on the like button. And one more thing that I usually forget to mention, if you haven't clicked on the bell icon yet, do click on that, because only then you will get to know that I have uploaded a new video. And if any doubts, or you can leave your opinions, whatever, you can do it in my comment section. That's it. Thank you so much. Cut!